We live in an age of probiotic pills, gut health gurus, and complicated diets. But thousands of years ago, long before science even knew what a microbe was, our ancestors had a super secret trick for incredible gut health, strong bodies, and even survival. And it was probably hiding in a simple clay pot. So, what's this ancient health secret? It is something you might call controlled rotting or predigestion. We know it as fermentation. Fermentation is basically a natural process where tiny invisible living things, called microbes, like yeast and bacteria, eat the sugars in food. Our ancestors were getting massive doses of beneficial bacteria, what we now call probiotics, directly from their diet, every single day. These friendly microbes help break down food in their stomachs, aided digestion, and even strengthen their immune systems. They're crunchy, tangy, and packed with goodness. Think of sauerkraut from ancient Europe, which provided vital vitamin C and helped prevent scurvy on long voyages. Sourdough bread, for instance, uses wild yeast and bacteria to ferment the dough, making the grains easier to digest and unlocking nutrients that might otherwise be harder for our bodies to use. It's a far cry from modern fast-baked bread. And ancient beer was a thick, nutritious liquid bread packed with B vitamins and beneficial microbes. It was a safer, more nourishing alternative to questionable water sources. So, even the most fundamental foods of ancient civilizations were often fermented powerhouses. Or the various forms of pickled vegetables found in ancient China and Rome. Take garum, a fermented fish sauce that was a super popular condiment in ancient Rome. It was basically fish left to ferment in salt, creating a strong, savory liquid. It was packed with amino acids and umami flavor, kind of like an ancient soy sauce or Worcestershire sauce. While perhaps not consumed in large quantities as a main meal, these fermented meat and fish products were vital for adding intense flavor and boosting the nutrient profile of other dishes, and for preserving valuable protein for long periods, especially in hot climates. They were truly pushing the boundaries of ancient food preservation and flavor. These weren't just tasty side dishes. They were essential for nutrition, especially when fresh produce was scarce in winter. They kept bodies strong, digestion smooth, and even helped build empires. What can we learn today? First, embrace fermentation. Add more naturally fermented foods to your diet. Second, diversify your food choices, just like our ancestors did with all their different fermented ingredients. Third, choose natural, unprocessed foods whenever you can. The wisdom of ancient fermentation is a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest, oldest tricks are the best ones for our health. They didn't need a pill. They had the power of microbes. If you enjoy diving into the past, keep tuned and subscribe to Into the Past with us. The lactic acid produced during fermentation also acted as a natural preservative, keeping these veggies edible for months. They truly were the original global health trend. A healthy gut means a healthier body, more energy, and better defenses against sickness. While they didn't have the scientific terms, ancient people instinctively knew that eating these living foods made them feel better, less bloated, and more resistant to disease. It was their natural daily wellness routine without any expensive supplements. When they do, they create acids, gases, and alcohol. First up, fermented dairy. Think yogurt, kefir, and cheese. These were game changers for ancient herding societies. Many ancient populations couldn't digest fresh milk as adults because they lacked the enzyme lactase. But when milk is fermented into yogurt or cheese, much of the problematic sugar, lactose, is broken down by the microbes. This meant that people who would get sick from drinking milk could safely enjoy the incredible protein, calcium, and fat benefits of dairy in its fermented form. Yogurt was a staple in the Middle East. Cheese was vital in Europe. These weren't just tasty, they made a critical food source accessible to millions. This changes the food in amazing ways. It tastes different, lasts longer, and here's the kicker: it often becomes way more nutritious. Ancient people didn't understand the science, but they understood the magic. They discovered that if you left milk out, it turned into yogurt. If you left cabbage in salt water, it became something tangy and delicious that lasted through winter. They were literally unlocking the power of the microscopic world without even knowing it. One of the biggest problems for ancient people was food going bad. No refrigerators, no freezers. So, how did they keep food from spoiling, especially through long winters or for long journeys? The microbes actually pre-digest some of the food for us, breaking down complex sugars and proteins into simpler forms that are easier for our bodies to absorb. This means you get more nutrients from the same amount of food. Many fermented foods also develop new vitamins, especially B vitamins. For example, ancient beers and sourdough breads weren't just calories. They were important sources of these essential nutrients. So fermented foods weren't just preserved. They were upgraded. Fermentation was the answer. By fermenting milk into yogurt or cheese, or vegetables into pickles and sauerkraut, they created foods that could last for weeks, months, or even years without spoiling. This was a game changer. It meant they could store food surpluses, survive lean times, and feed armies on long campaigns. This ability to preserve food literally allowed civilizations to grow, explore, and thrive. Fermentation was not just a health trick, it was a survival essential. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. Fermentation doesn't just preserve food. It makes it better for you. It's like a natural nutrient booster. This is the part everyone talks about today, gut health. Let's look at some specific examples. Next, fermented vegetables. Almost every ancient culture, across every continent, had some form of fermented vegetable. We've talked about bread and beer being staples, but remember, they were also fermented foods. And that fermentation made them incredibly valuable for ancient health. Now, for some ancient fermented foods that might seem a little unusual to our modern tastes, ancient people also fermented meats and fish. So from humble pots of yogurt to thick, nourishing beers, fermented foods were the unsung heroes of ancient health and survival.